Hello, I'm Demis Helen, and this is episode number 3 of my Cubase 13 series, and we're going to be taking a look at the M5 EQ in this episode and how we can control the highs but add presence to sounds in a otherwise cluttered mix. So here we are with the EQ-M5 on a keys ARP track. So I've used it on a couple of tracks throughout, but this is the one where we can sort of hear the results more because it's a very subtle plugin for this particular track. I'm just trying to attenuate certain areas and just give a little bit more breathing space to the higher frequencies, but also not making it sound too thin. So with the keys preset, if we just bypass this, we get a nice sort of blanket of sound. We've got quite a lot of mid-range in there. Doesn't sound too thin in the low end, and we've got some nice crispy highs. But again, the keys here take the focus. We've got the piano ARP also acting in that same sort of mid area. So you can see I've attenuated the mids there. So what we're going to do is load it in the same EQ-M5 as a default, and then we'll copy the settings so you can hear exactly how it is and match it up close enough to the original. So I'm going to load in another M5. So let's rearrange them so they're like this. So the original at the top, the one that we're working on the bottom. So let's unbypass the top one, so the original, so you can hear exactly what this keys ARP preset sounds like. I'll turn it off so you can hear it, particularly focus on the middle or the mids of the sound, and then we'll recreate it. So let's bypass the original and unbypass the new EQ that we've got on here. And I'm going to attenuate the mids here, and then I'm going to tweak the highs and the high boost. I'm going to take it to the extremes, bring it back to where it needs to be, and you're going to hear how that is shaping the sound. Okay, so you can hear when we turn up the high boost and move that high frequency around, we can hear that narrow Q sort of moving up and down through from that sort of 1K all the way to 5K. And you can see I'm balancing it around about 2, and I'm doing it by ear. I'm not doing it exactly like this one, just doing it by ear where it sounds natural. And also that high boost, I'm going to keep high because we need to be able to hear where that's moving, and then we can attenuate if we needed to, but I've kept it up here. The mid attenuator is then just controlling that squelchy sort of resonant peak and just sort of balancing it back out. So we shift the focus from the mids up to the highs using these 3 controls. So again, let me turn this down and this down as well. And let's try this again so you can hear it. All in all, you're not going to hear too much. You just think, oh, we've just scooped out some of the mids. We could have done that with any EQ. Whereas this one adds some character and we just have a little bit more control over that. The mid attenuator is just controlling that squelchiness based on the position of our high frequency and our high boost. So the high boost is sort of bringing it to a more of a point, and then when we're sweeping through with that high frequency, we can pick where the instrumentation resonates naturally and sounds nice, which is around, for me, that 2 kilohertz. So we need to hear this in context. That's more to the point with this, and we're going to use this one as our original because this is the original EQ, and I'm going to overcompensate this one. I'm going to turn the mid attenuation down, and I'm going to bring up the high frequency to about 4 kilohertz or something like that. So let's have a listen to these two. So the original first, and then I'll switch them over when it gets to about bar 45. So you can hear that's poorly done. That's not how we need it. There's too much information coming through in one section. It's not tuned correctly. So again, let's swap these back around and play the track in context and listen to both again at the same positions. So you can hear that it sounds better, but it sounds a lot quieter now. It's meant to take a back seat in the mix. It's more obvious that this has started playing this key arp when we go, say, from bar 29. After hearing all this, this is a new element, so you're sort of drawn to it, but not too loud, and then it takes more of a dominant role in this break here. So let's listen from bar 29 so you can hear the keys more in context. Key arp is more noticeable now, and then when we go into the break here, you can hear it takes more of a front seat. And the combination of fading in the filters here that you can see on the automation, it has a nice blast. Again, let's listen to the M5 that we've created that's out of tune or out of whack with the mix. So tonally, it's wrong. Sounds okay, but it's tonally wrong. We could tame it down, we could tame the mids down a bit, but you can still hear that squelchiness coming through from the narrow Q, and it doesn't suit that particular sound at that point. So with that said, let's put that back on and turn that off, and we have a nice completed section of the track with the EQ-M5. Finally, I just want to show you another section here with the M5, which is the keys from the first episode. This has also a bit of a squelchy tone, a bit too much mid-range that can really sort of cut through the mix a little bit too much, and it just sounds a bit more unnatural. So to control that, I'm using the M5. I've got the new instance on the bottom and the instance that I've used in the track. And we're using the lows, mids and highs here, as you can see. The highs are very subtle, the mids are a little bit less subtle. You can hear what's happening, and the lows you can really hear what's happening. So the lows is just a boost, really just to bring out the warmth, to stop it sounding too thin with the adjustments to the mids and the high. And all I'm doing is shifting where I want the attention on the frequency area for that particular sound. So I'm not trying to shape it, I'm just trying to shift where it's more prominent. Okay, so just to explain what's happening there, if you couldn't hear the lows, you could hear them bring up sort of the mids at the 500 Hertz. It's really just to retain a bit of warmth, like I said. The mid attenuator, you can hear the sound get softer. It just takes that edge off it, but it's very subtle because we're sort of sloping off at the settings we have here, 2000 kilohertz. That's where we're sort of sloping the EQ off. And then the highs do even less, but there's just a smidge of shifting that happens there, and it'd work better if we weren't rolling out the piano highs or the key highs too much. So we're really focusing on this section here. So listen to how soft it goes. So it just lets them resonant peaks come through a bit too much. So attenuating them down just a smidge, about halfway seems to be okay without it sounding too soft, because we've already softened it with the Vox comp. And then high frequencies are tuned to 5 kilohertz, and then obviously the high boost is just twisted around a little bit so we can hear that effect, but it's extremely subtle. So it just takes the edge off those mids again and softens them off, and you can see that works beautifully. So from that, we can see the EQ-M5 is very versatile, and it's probably one of my favorite go-tos for those final minor tweaks where we can just shift the focus to where we need it to be and soften off maybe harsher high or mid sounds. And there we have it. That is the brand new EQ-M5 in Cubase 13. I've shown you how to creatively use that to add presence and control the highs within your mix. It does extend a bit further than that. You can control the lows, maybe not as much as the EQ-P1A. That is a lot more in the lower frequencies, but the EQ-M5 works really well in that mid section up into the uppers. Great for vocals, keys, arpeggios, anything that you want to really sparkle and shine through the mix. So thank you very much for watching. I've been Demis Helen, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the final episode number 4. I'll see you there.